Russ Belville Show, the winner of America's search for the next great progressive talk radio star. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Well, when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal.
And during the holiday season, nativity scenes and menorahs should be welcome in our public places.
If they want a president who doesn't believe in God, there's probably plenty of choices.
A wiretap requires a court order.
Oh, if only it were that easy. Good afternoon, morning, or evening, wherever you're at. Welcome to the weekend, North America. I'm Radical Russ Belville, and I'm broadcasting from the free speech zone that we call America. Live on XM Satellite 167 or a terrestrial station near you. The phone number here is 866-55-77-377, toll free from anywhere on the continent. Or if you're shy, the email address is radicalruss@gmail.com. So let's talk about our day-to-day, paycheck-to-paycheck survival here in George W. Bush's neocon nightmare and what we're going to do to restore our Constitution and repair America's standing in the world. Welcome everyone to the show. You can probably detect from my voice here, I'm a little bit under the weather. If you've been following the news up here in the Pacific Northwest, I'm broadcasting here out of Portland, Oregon, and we got a little bit of rain up here. You might have noticed from the news reports. Yeah, right nearby where I live here, I actually live in Beaverton, Oregon, which is a little bit south of Portland, and we had one of our major artery freeways there cut off. The Highway 217 was flooded out, and we couldn't get anywhere, and I-5, the main corridor between Portland and Seattle, has been down as well, with water covering the roadways. I had some friends, as a matter of fact, who live out on the coast, out in Astoria, Oregon, at the upper northwest corner of Oregon, who couldn't get home. All of the routes that would take you to that part of the coast were cut off by flooding. So we are glad today that it's a beautiful sunny day out today, and some of the folks are starting to dry off and be able to get back to their homes. Our governor is looking to get some federal assistance out here from FEMA. Well, good luck with that. Let's see what happens there. But everything's okay here at Casa de Belleville. We're not flooded out. I'm just a little bit sick, but just a little bit of a cold. That's not going to stop me from fighting against this neocon nightmare we call the Bush maladministration. But as usual, I know a lot of you out there are like me. You work a full-time job for a living. You know, when I'm not doing this radio show, I work a full 40 hours just like anybody else. So you don't always have the time to catch up with the newspaper or the evening news. So at the top of the Russ Belville Show, I help you catch up on the week's hottest news topics with
The Week in 90 Seconds.
The National Intelligence Estimate says that Iran stopped trying to make nukes in 2003.
That old Beach Boys song, Bomb Iran.
Multiple choice Mitt declares his Mormonism won't dictate his presidency, except for the punch and jello to be served at state dinners.
I believe in my Mormon faith, and I endeavor to live by it.
The Supreme Court hears arguments on whether In God We Trust on our currency violates the separation of church and state.
Don't you blaspheme in here! Don't you blaspheme in here!
Huckabee Duckabee Doc. He let a rapist get off. He raped once more, just like victims warned, and now the White House isn't a lock.
Jesus was too smart to ever run for public office.
The CIA has destroyed videotapes of interrogations that use the drowning torture, even though they told Congress they had no such evidence.
Lies, yeah!
The House passes a bill transferring $13 billion in oil subsidies to renewable energy, but the GOP senators obstruct this oil addiction rehab.
They tried to make me go to rehab. I said no, no, no.
Speaking of train wrecks, the government prepares a bailout of homeowners caught in the subprime lending fiasco because the government wouldn't regulate subprime lenders.
Would you be mine? Won't you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor?
And a shooter in an Omaha mall proves once again guns don't kill people. Depressed young male loners with guns kill people.
I don't understand fighting assault weapons, the ban on assault weapons.
Yeah, those are the stories that are percolating through the news today. We'll be talking a little bit about all of them, and if you want to make your opinion known to the North American continent, our phone number toll-free is 866-5577-377. That's 866-557-7777. 7377. And, one other little thing that I wasn't able to fit into the 90-second recap at the top of this week. It's just been such a perfect little year for me. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. My former senator, you realize I'm originally from Idaho, and my former senator, Larry Craig, was back in the news today, or this week. The Idaho Statesman newspaper came out with more allegations from more men, saying that, Larry Craig, had hit them up. But, we just want to let everyone know out there that Larry Craig is still not gay.
Let me be clear. I am not gay. I never have been gay.
I am not gay. I'm a fairly wide guy.
I don't hit on anyone.
I did nothing wrong at the Minneapolis airport.
I don't seek activity in that.
I'm not gay, and I don't cruise, and I don't hit on men.
I am not gay. I don't do these kind of things.
I don't go around anywhere hitting on men, and by God, if I did, I wouldn't do it in Boise, Idaho.
You're a naughty boy.
A naughty boy.
Nasty, bad, naughty boy. Thank you all very much for coming out today.
Oh, yeah, just keeps on giving. It's like the Christmas present that never ends for me, the liberal progressive talker from Idaho. Thank you, Senator Craig, for continuing to exemplify the hypocrisy and the scandal of the modern GOP party, the grand old pervs. Oh, wow. Hey, I wanted to get back to this Mitt Romney thing. And, speaking of Idaho and speaking of my background, this is kind of something that rings true to me, this whole religion in politics thing. And I just want to know, are you as sick of this, all these Jesus questions, all this religion stuff in our politics today? It's just gone a little too far, if you ask me. And, I want to talk a little bit about this today. And my personal background is I was actually raised in the Mormon church. I have lots of Mormon relatives. I was going to the Mormon church and was even baptized in the Mormon church. I kind of left around age 12 once I kind of figured out that, Santa Claus wasn't real and the Easter Bunny was fake and all that. I kind of left the religion at that point, left all religion at that point. And, I understand this is an important issue to many people. I understand that a lot of people take their mythology very seriously, and this is an important bellwether in the elections. But, what I want to know is, what about those of us who are non-believers? According to the statistics, according to the surveys, about 23% of the American population do not recognize any sort of religious faith. Either they're atheist or agnostic or just not interested, just don't care about religion. And what about all of the minority faiths out there, the Buddhists, the Wiccans, the Jainists, the Scientologists? Who's going to speak up for these people? I think it's really sad in this country that it's come to the point where we have these religious tests for office. Our Constitution, our founding fathers, were trying to fight against a religious persecution. And they wrote it very clearly in the Constitution that there shall be no religious tests required to fulfill an office of the public trust in the United States of America at any level, down to dog catcher, okay? From president to dog catcher, no religious tests. And yet, what are we getting with all these questions if not religious tests for office? I think these questions ought to just be banned from any of the debates or any of the candidate forums. I mean, I think the candidates should themselves come out and say, my faith is a personal matter. It has no bearing on my politics, and I don't want to discuss the issue. But of course, many of them aren't going to do that, are they? They're going to pander. They're going to be reaching out for that religious vote. And they wear their religion and their faith on their sleeve like some sort of banner or logo to try to attract a brand loyalty or something like that. So my question out to you folks out there is this. Would you vote for a Mormon for president? I mean, let's just take Mitt Romney out of the equation and his politics and his flip-floppery. Would you just vote for generic Mormon? I mean, you realize that Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid is a member of the LDS Church, as is Arlen Specter on the Judiciary Committee. There's a lot of Mormons out there in public office. Should this be any sort of barrier? And what about the rest of the religions? What about the Muslims? Would you vote for a Muslim? Would you vote for an atheist? They show these polls. This was on CNN the other day, where they asked people this question. And there was about 23% of the people that said under no circumstances would they vote for a Mormon. And there was also, similar numbers when asked, higher numbers actually, when asked if they'd vote for an atheist or a Muslim. More and more people said, no, I would never vote for an atheist, or I would never vote for a Muslim. And this is just so anti-American. These religious people, they seem to think that America was founded as some sort of Christian nation, which is absolutely not true. I mean, you can just take a look at the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. You can look to the Treaty of Tripoli in 1791, where they wrote, and Congress passed unanimously that the United States is in no sense founded as a Christian nation. So, yet we get all these questions about religion, so much so that Mitt Romney this week had to go out and make a special speech just to address the concerns about his Mormon religion. So when we come back from the break, we're going to play some clips from his Mormon speech, some truly, truly amazing clips. If you love the Constitution, if you love this country, his answers to some of these questions ought to just put a chill down your spine. Also, coming up a little bit later in the show, we'll talk about that NIE that proved Bush to be a liar, about Iran trying to gear up for World War III. We've got our Lunatic Fringe Award for the craziest statements from the right wing this week, the CIA destroying evidence of torture, all that and more coming up on the next segment of the Russ Belville Show. Please stay tuned. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
President must serve only the common cause of the people of the United States.
Oh, yeah. Plenty of Jesus floating around in the campaign this year. It's 22 after the hour. Welcome back to the weekend. I'm Radical Russ, reminding you that I am not some pot-smoking, tax-hiking, government-expanding, latte-drinking, sushi-eating, Volvo-driving, New York Times-reading, body-piercing, Hollywood-loving, left-wing freak show. I drive a Jeep. And we were talking about Mitt Romney's Mormon speech. Mitt Romney, multiple choice Mitt, the Mitt flopper, has got himself in a bit of a pickle here with regards to trying to secure the Republican nomination for president. Because, the GOP has cultivated this right-wing base, these hypocritical evangelical Taliban type folks, the kind that want to take us back to the 1950s and deny women their rights over their own bodies and have prayer in public schools and teach that man walked alongside the dinosaurs like the Fred Flintstone days. Those folks, right? So he's got to court that side of the intellectual aisle, so to speak. And in doing so, he's got himself a little bit of a problem. First of all, he's got old Mike Huckabee over there, Huckabee Duckabee Doc over there, who's a former Baptist preacher. So he's kind of got the God cred on his side in that respect. So Romney needs to appeal to these evangelicals, many of whom are extremely, extremely turned off by the idea of his Mormon religion. And, I don't want to make this about bashing Mormons per se, considering that many of my family are Mormon and I came up in that church, all the people that will say that, how silly Mormonism is, they'll always come up and they'll say things like, God comes from Star System Kolob and how the Mormons wear special underwear and, all the typical things they usually bash Mormons with. And I always just reply that, Mormonism's no sillier than any other religion. It's just younger. That's the thing. It's just younger and has less people to defend it. That's all. If we want to get into how silly religions are, we could go all day on that. But that's not what I want to make this about. I want to make this about how Romney, in his attempt to reach out to these evangelicals, has come up with this battle plan to try to unite all the faith people under one banner against those of us who do not worship, those of us without belief. You see, this is how he can try to win. He knows he can't portray himself as the candidate of the evangelicals. We saw that in the debate when they asked him, that guy, the GOP debate, YouTube debate, when the guy asked about, do you believe every word of the Bible? And he kind of hemmed and hawed about the word of God. Because it would have been kind of tough for him, because there's words in the Bible about any prophecy coming after this is false and blah, 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 and that would be a big problem for him. So I believe that Romney now, what he's trying to do is to make this a us against them, the same old divide and conquer that GOP always uses, and he's trying to say, hey, you churchy folks, we're all churchy folks, let's gang up against the secularists. Yeah, and see, this is what he's going to try to do. He's trying to paint himself as the religious candidate, generic, rather than the specific religion of Mormonism. And here's one of the quotes I've got from his speech the other day that he gave, trying to allay the fears about his Mormonism. Check out what he thinks about those of us without faith.
The notion of the separation of church and state has been taken by some well beyond its original meaning. They seek to remove from the public domain any acknowledgement of God. Religion is seen as merely a private affair with no place in public life. It's as if they're intent on establishing a new religion in America, the religion of secularism. They're wrong.
The religion of secularism, which is kind of like saying baldness is a hair color. The secularism is the rejection of religion. But, you know, let's just go back to his quote here. Trying to take us big bad lefties, us secular progressives, you know, us evil secular progressives, are trying to take and make it a private affair with no place in public life. Really? Really? Have you driven around lately and looked around the public, you know, the public spaces? You know, I drive around, I see all sorts of menorahs and nativity scenes in people's yards. I see all sorts of businesses that have, despite what Bill O'Reilly might say, that have Merry Christmas displayed in some of their displays. I turn on my TV and I got Christmas special after Christmas special. Every place I go, they've piped in all sorts of Christmas music. We Three Kings of Orient Are, and Away in a Manger, all these songs about the birth of Jesus. You know, you'd have to go a real long way on the crazy side of your brain to think that there is no public display of religion in American life. What we're against is using our taxpayer money to pay for it. That's it. That's it. I don't care if you put the biggest Jesus on a cross manger scene in the world on your lawn, on your business. I don't care. That's fine. That's your right as an American. And, man, I'll stand up and fight for it. You know, that's your First Amendment right. But the minute you want to spend my taxpayer money to promote your God, that's where the problem exists. And, you know, I don't think I'm the only one out here. If you got an opinion on this, would you vote for Mormon? Would you vote for an evangelical? Would you vote for a Muslim? How much does this religion thing affect your decisions in voting? Our phone number here is 866-557-7377. That's 866-55-77-377. Now, Mitt also had this statement, which just defies all logic. Let me play this one for you.
Freedom requires religion, just as religion requires freedom.
Religion requires freedom, and freedom requires religion. Okay. You know, the founding fathers left a country called England, which had a state church, had an Anglican church. So basically, they did not have freedom. They had to worship at the state church. That was the rule. That was the law. So there wasn't freedom then, and yet the Anglican Church still exists. You know, there's countries all over the world that practice Islamic law, where their governments dictate that you must believe and follow the Islamic law. Not a whole lot of freedom there, and yet Islam still exists. So no, religion does not require freedom. Many religions require freedom, but religion itself does not require freedom. And that's what I'm getting at here, is that the more that we have the introduction of government into the affairs of religion, the more we creep toward state religion. The more we creep toward having to acknowledge as a matter of daily life a religion. So you want to keep freedom of religion in America, you need to be on my side, standing up for the equality of all religions in America, not just Christian supremacy. Now, speaking of Christian supremacy, when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about this lawsuit up at the Supreme Court. An atheist has challenged the words, "In God we trust" on our money. You think we ought to take that off our money? "In God we trust"? I'd like to know. Give me a call. 866-55-77-377. I'm Radical Russ. I'll be right back.
This is the Russ Belville Show, the winner of America's search for the next great progressive talk radio star. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Yes. Welcome back. It's 35 after the hour, and you're listening to live weekend progressive talk for the average working class American from an average working class American. That's me, Radical Russ Belville. And feeling a little under the weather today. This week of flooding up here in the Pacific Northwest brought along a little rhinovirus. But you know, it's going to take more than a little rhinovirus to stop me from fighting for my Constitution and fighting for my country against the Cheney-Benton maladministration and the pinheads that support it. So you still got me here live and direct on the weekend. Talking a little bit about the Jesus today. Mitt Romney just gave his speech on Mormonism. So we're going to deconstruct that a little bit here as we keep going on the show. Mitt didn't have much to say about people like me, non-believers, atheists, agnostics, free thinkers, Wiccans, Scientologists, Hindu, Buddhists, whatever. No, according to Mitt, it's all about the Jesus. Got to believe in the Jesus before you can be a good person. And, what do you think about that? I mean, why are we having so many of these questions about religion? It just should be forbidden as far as getting into this whole deal with our nominating our presidents and our leaders. No religious tests. It's in the Constitution. No religious tests. Let's go to your opinions on the phones here. The phone number is 866-55-77-377. I've got Damien in Alexandria, Virginia. Damien, welcome to the Russ Belville Show.
Hey, Russ. How are you doing?
Oh, a little under the weather, but surviving.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that you're getting better, and I hope you are getting better soon. What I wanted to say was that Mitt's speech was an entire offense to anyone who supported John Kennedy or anybody in the Kennedy family when he said that he was making a speech similar to his, and then quoted John Kennedy, and then proceeded to give everybody the reasons how his faith was going to inform his presidency.
Yeah, let's break that down for some of the younger listeners out there. Back in 1960, John F. Kennedy's running for president against Nixon, and he's a Catholic, and he's the first and, to this date, only Catholic to have been nominated and win the presidency. And there was a lot of people who were afraid of that. They were afraid that the Pope would somehow be running our country, that he'd be getting all of his information directly from the Pope. And so Kennedy came out and said, no, my Catholicism has nothing to do with how I'm going to be president. And Damien, you nailed it on the head here, when you said that the whole deal here is that Romney was coming out and saying just the opposite. He was saying that, yes, I am a religious guy, and my religion is going to inform my presidency. So, yeah, definitely an insult to the memory of JFK and all that he stood for.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for your call. I totally appreciate that, and we've got to move on here just a little bit. So, this whole Mitt Romney thing, and let me just go to, the documents. Let's go to the actual law in this country. We've got, of course, you've always got the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting a institution or an establishment of religion or preventing or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. You got the 1791 Treaty of Tripoli. The United States is not in any way founded as a Christian nation. This is the stuff we're working against here. Let me turn now to Roz. Roz in Houston, Texas. Roz, welcome to the Russ Belville Show.
Hey, how are you?
Well, I'm doing pretty good.
Good. Well, I just wanted to say that I am a staunch Christian, and I agree with you 100%. And let me tell you the reason why. Because it's insulting to me that people who purport and say all these things, they can't possibly have read the Bible, because Jesus himself dealt with this very notion of separation in church and state. Because someone questioned him about paying taxes to Caesar. And he said, take a coin out. He said, whose picture is on that coin? And it was Caesar's, of course. And he says, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, render unto God the things that are God's. End of story.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'm a believer. I'm a believer more than anybody. But I can tell you this, I don't want anybody telling me what to do.
Well, exactly. Once we start going down that pathway of establishing a religion, of getting government involved in religion, I think what a lot of religious folks don't understand, and it seems that you do understand, is that the separation of church and state is not just there to protect the state from the church. It's also there to protect the church from the state. If we start deciding that we're Yeah, if we start deciding we're going to be some sort of Christian nation, the next question goes, okay, what flavor of Christianity? Are we Protestant or Catholic? And then if we go Protestant, all right, what flavor of Protestant? Are we Baptist or are we Lutheran? And then if we go Baptist, what flavor? It just never ends, Roz.
It never ends. Never ends. But that's why you know.
Yeah, and the other...
That's why you listen to the people. They don't even read their own Bible. Please. I'm out of here.
Yeah. Thank you, Roz. Yeah, they missed the part about praying in a closet, too. Something Jesus said about, don't try to wear your religion on your sleeve and don't try to be all pious and be in public to show how pious you are, that was an affront to God as well. I appreciate the people of faith that are calling me up on this. I'll be right up front. I'm not a person of faith at all. But I fully support everybody's right to believe what they want to believe. I just don't want to see that affecting our country. The man needs to be president of the United States, not the Christian states, not the Christian voters, the president of all the United States and all the Americans in the United States. And, this idea about the secular versus the religious, that's where Romney wants to take this. Romney wants to take this distaste that many evangelicals feel for Mormonism and try to obfuscate that by making it a larger sort of culture war issue. Let's make it the believers versus the non-believers. And that's how he's going to get past that whole Mormon thing. It's kind of like, we can agree to disagree on the finer points of the Bible, but at least we both believe in the Bible. Let's go get the secular progressives. That's the idea that's going on here. And I want to go back to this. There was a Supreme Court case that came down. This was back in the 60s, 1961. It was a case called Torcaso, and I probably butchered the name, Torcaso versus Watkins, 1961. The Supreme Court struck down a Maryland state constitutional provision which stated, quote, "No religious test ought ever be required as a qualification for any office of profit or trust in this state other than a declaration of belief in the existence of God." So Maryland was trying to have it like, okay, you don't have to be specifically Christian, but you have to at least believe in God. And the Supreme Court came back and said, we repeat and again reaffirm that neither a state nor the federal government can constitutionally force a person to profess a belief or disbelief in any religion. Neither can constitutionally pass laws or impose requirements which aid all religions as against non-believers, and neither can aid those religions based on a belief in the existence of God as against those religions founded on different beliefs. It goes back again to the Constitution. Respect no establishment of religion, and the right to not believe is just as strong as the right to believe. All we ask is for government to be neutral on matters of religion. And when we have all of these religious questions for our candidates, when we have all these religious groups that are out there lobbying for particular candidates, that I see as melding too much of church and state. I would vote for a Mormon. I've got no problem with the Mormon religion. I would vote for a Christian, a Buddhist, a Jew, a Scientologist. I don't care what you believe on your private time about the existence of the universe and how it was created and what our plan is here. I got no problem with that. I'm more concerned about your policies. What are you going to do? Are you going to act like a Christian? Are you going to take care of the poor and the sick and the least among us? That's the most galling part of this whole thing, is we've had all of these so-called Christians in office, especially from the GOP side, who profess to be Christians and yet give all the handouts to the rich. Jesus was kind of against the whole rich thing, at least in my reading of the Bible. He wasn't too cool on the whole wealth and exorbitant lifestyles, So, how these people can claim to be Christian and yet endorse all these policies that benefit the rich and harm the poor, it's just the ultimate hypocrisy. Now, also coming down the pike, another Supreme Court case. This is something that's being heard at the Supreme Court. The court just agreed to hear this case. Was a case of Michael Nudo, who's an atheist in California. He had previously sued about having to say the Pledge of Allegiance under God at his daughter's school. And his case was dismissed because he didn't have legal standing. His newest case here is about "In God We Trust" on our currency. So my question for you as we hit the break here, the question is, "In God We Trust" on our currency, is that just some national motto? Is that just some secular generic statement? Or is that a government endorsement of religion? The phone number is 866-55-77-377. In God we trust. Keep it or scrap it. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's 50 after the hour. I'm Radical Russ, here to take our country back, one person at a time, every weekend. Remember, it's still we the people, not we the corporations. We're drying out here up in the Pacific Northwest. We've had a lot of rain, and let me tell you, living up in the Pacific Northwest, when we say a lot of rain, we mean a whole lot of rain, because we're kind of used to the whole rain thing up here. But we're drying out, except for me. I've got a little bit of a cold here. The rain brought me a nice little rhinovirus. That was sure nice of it. And, before I go on, I wanted to say something you probably never, ever heard me say. I want to congratulate Rush Limbaugh.
What?
I know. Hard to believe, isn't it? Yeah, I'm doing this show on some Dayquil, some zinc lozenges, some nasal spray, and some antihistamines, and I can hardly think straight. This guy was doing a radio show every day on 30 Oxycontin. So, congratulations, Rush Limbaugh. You certainly outdo me as far as being able to function on mind-altering substances on the radio, because, man, these antihistamines, woo! Yeah, isn't it sad when the over-the-counter drugs are more powerful than the street drugs? I mean, did you know, this is just a little trivia for you, did you know there are more overdose deaths every year from over-the-counter medications than from all illegal drugs combined? Isn't that interesting? Anyway, I asked a question before we went to break. This has to do with a lawsuit that Michael Nudo in California has put before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has decided to hear this case, which is a lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of having "In God We Trust" on our money as a slogan on our money. Now, you got to realize that the first laws that authorized "In God We Trust" on any sort of American currency came about around the time of the Civil War, when it was put on a 2-cent coin, "In God We Trust." And then in the 1950s, when we were suffering through McCarthyism and the Red Scare and the godless communist menace, during that time, Congress hastily passed some laws that mandated "In God We Trust" on all our money as a national slogan. Now, it's been challenged before, and when it was challenged before, every court that's heard it has said something to the effect of, well, it's just a secular national slogan. It doesn't really establish any sort of religion. It just kind of reflects our heritage that we had a whole lot of churchy people that founded this country, and they believed in God, and so it's just kind of a secular thing. And, I completely disagree. And, maybe you do too. I'd love to hear your opinion on it at 866-55-77-377. But as far as I'm concerned, what took them so long? "In God We Trust," right there on my money, on the legal tender of the government of the United States, backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government, is an acknowledgement of a supreme deity. How is that not an endorsement of religion? How can the word God be on our money and not be religious? I mean, they're trying to have it both ways. They want to have "In God We Trust" because they all believe in the God, and they all believe in the whole Christian nation myth. But yet they want to have it both ways and say, oh, no, it's not religious, it's a secular thing. It's not unconstitutional because we don't really mean it. Okay, so if you really don't mean it, if it's a secular motto, then why are you against getting rid of it? Why are you against getting rid of it if it's a secular motto? Why not change this so-called secular motto? Why? Because it's not a secular motto. It's another example of the Christian supremacy movement in this country. I always like to tell people, we don't live in a Christian nation. We live in a nation populated by a majority of Christians. There is a critical difference here, okay? And the critical difference is that Christians are just one of many religions and non-religions living in this country. All people who are equal citizens under the law. And yet, when these non-believer citizens spend their money every day, they are told that their government trusts God. That's really what it amounts to. "In God We Trust" just says that the full faith and credit of the United States is based on a trust in God, and that insults every atheist, agnostic, and non-believer out there. This is a country for all of us. Get rid of "In God We Trust" on our money. it's time, it's long past time for this to go. Now, as far as the whole religion thing goes, too, I want to just cap this off. We'll stop talking about this here when we get to the top of the next hour, but, it's just, I've just heard so much of it in this campaign season that I can't let it go too quickly. I want to turn to Mike Huckabee, Huckabee Duckabee Doc, the guy that lets rapists off, that guy. He, in one of the GOP debates, said something that was just truly astounding. This was, I think, back in one of those debates in the summertime.
If they want a president who doesn't believe in God, there's probably plenty of choices.
Really? Really? Is there a candidate out there that professes to not believe in God? I'd love to know the name of that candidate, Mr. Huckabee, if you could suggest one, because I've looked all up and down the Democratic side, and I've looked all up and down the Republican side, and to a man and woman, they all profess some sort of belief in God. But this is not the one that just, this is just amazing. Wait till I play you this one. Mike Huckabee is at this rally, and a young student gets up and asks him a question about his recent surge in the polls. It's like Mike Huckabee hasn't raised a whole lot of money, and he's been counted out, so many times over this past summer and fall as being, not a serious candidate, not one of the top tier candidates. He doesn't have enough fundraising potential, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But now, just today, it's been shown that he's got a 22-point lead in Iowa. And so this student was asking him, what do you attribute this surge in the polls to? What is it that helped you to jump ahead with so little money? And this is Mike Huckabee's answer.
There's only one explanation for it, and it's not a human one. It's the same power that helped a little boy with 2 fish and 5 loaves feed a crowd of 5,000 people. And that's the only way that our campaign could be doing what it's doing. And I'm not being facetious, nor am I trying to be trite.
So it's all because of God. It's God did it. God did all the polls. Has nothing to do with evangelicals being against Romney and his Mormonism. Has nothing to do with Giuliani free-falling because of the Sex on the City scandal. It's all God. Let's turn to the phones. 866-55-77-377. I've got Rockney in Saylorsburg, Pennsylvania. Rockney, welcome to the Russ Belville Show.
Hi. I like your show. On the question of the in God we trust thing there, basically it's unconstitutional, but the problem is that, in an election year, you have, people trying to take God out of the government and everything, and that's going to drive all these religious goofballs nuts and, cause them to, to vote against those secular Democrats and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, just a bad...
So the timing is bad. Yeah, the timing is bad. Newto's not, part of any sort of Democratic establishment or anything, so I'm not sure that he's consulting with any of the campaigns or anything, but I think you got a point there. Talk about driving out, every year they got some issue to try to bring out the Bible beater set. It's the anti-gay marriage thing back in 2004.
Exactly.
Yeah, is this going to turn into to their little wedge issue?
Well, I hope not, but I envision it as such because that's what these people are all about.
Yeah, it's all about this culture war to them, Well, thank you for your call, Rockney. Appreciate it. Yeah, stop taking a look at this so-called culture war stuff. Let's look at the real issues here in America about poverty and homelessness and hunger and lack of health care. These are the things Jesus would be more concerned with than whether or not we have in God we trust on our money. That's for sure. Well, when we come back from the break here at the top of the hour, we're going to have our Lunatic Fringe Awards for the craziest statement by a right-winger this week. Stay tuned. You're listening.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs. I repeat what I said. I truly am not that concerned about him. I don't think I ever said I'm not worried about Osama bin Laden. It's kind of one of those exaggerations. A wiretap requires a court order.
Major combat operations in Iraq have ended.
And as you know, my position is clear. I'm a commander guy.
Welcome back to the weekend. Hello, North America. I'm Radical Russ Belville, and I'm broadcasting from the free speech zone we call America. Live on XM Satellite 167 or a terrestrial station near you. The phone number is 866-55-77-377, toll-free from anywhere on the continent. Or if you're shy, the email address is radicalruss@gmail.com. So let's talk about our day-to-day, paycheck-to-paycheck survival in George W. Bush's neocon nightmare and what we're going to do to restore our Constitution and repair America's standing in the world. Yes, glad to have you here, and I appreciate everyone who's calling into the show. Hey, I wanted to let you know about the website. Check out my website at radicalruss.net. From week to week, I post up there a Google map with the locations of all my callers, so we can kind of get an idea that we're all in this together, that from coast to coast and in the states in between, we're all fighting for our Constitution. One boy, one girl, one person at a time. And let me get to this, let's get to our regular segment here that we do every week.
The lunatic is on the grass.
Now it's time for the weekly roundup of the right wing's altered reality.
The lunatic is on the grass.
From the Guano Loco neocon chicken hawks to the hypocritical American Taliban and the cable news punditocracy, the Russ Belville Show presents the Lunatic Fringe Award, an award dedicated to the politician, pundit, or preacher who said the most ignorant, hateful, or bizarre quote of the week. And this is going to be a special edition. We got a lot of candidates this week for the stupidest thing said this week. And as usual, I'm going to disqualify George Bush for the award because, well, I don't have enough time in the show for the stupid things he says. But our first candidate here for the Lunatic Fringe Award, this one comes to us from the bastion of intellectualism that is The View, the daytime talk show with the four ladies, Joy Behar and Barbara Walters, Whoopi Goldberg, and this woman named Sherry Shepherd, who's pretty new to the show. You might remember a few weeks ago, maybe it was 3 months ago, when we did the Lunatic Fringe Award. We gave her an award for when she didn't understand that the world was round. Yeah, I'm not making that up. She still thought there was some argument amongst people about to whether or not the world was flat or round. Anyway, this Sherry Shepherd, this latest quote, they're talking about Epicurus. They're talking about, I don't know how they got to this subject, but they're talking about Greek philosophers, okay? And Epicurus died around 200 BC, 225 BC, something like that. He died, a couple centuries before Christ. And so they're explaining this, and they're talking about this, and Sherry Shepherd had this little problem kind of understanding how our calendars work. Check this one out.
They had Christians, so they threw them to the lions.
I think this might predate that. I think this might predate that.
I don't think anything predated Christians.
No. Yes. The Greeks came first. Yes, the Greeks were first. Then the Romans, then the Christians.
Jesus came first before them.
See, this is what happens when you spend too much time in Sunday school and not enough time in regular school. Let's not even try to explain to her the ancient Chinese, ancient Egyptian that predated Christ by, 2,000-3,000 years. Yeah, that's she's beyond hope there. But she's not our winner. She's not our winner today. We're going to go to the right-wing airwaves on the radio for our next candidate. This guy's going to get the Hall of Fame any day now. Michael Savage. You may have heard Michael Savage has a radio show called The Savage Nation. The guy's real name is Michael Weiner. Anyway, Michael Savage is talking about the GOP YouTube debate and how they had a supposed plant from Hillary Clinton's campaign. This Lieutenant General Kerr, who's an out gay man who served in the military with honor and distinction, and who asked the question as to whether or not, why did they think our soldiers weren't professional enough to serve with gays and lesbians. And so this is Michael Savage honoring the troops, supporting the troops, supporting this general. This is what Michael Savage had to say about the situation.
CNN is a bear trap for anybody conservative. Look what they did the other night, last week, rather, with the YouTube CNN debate when they put a planted gay, phony general in the audience.
A planted, gay, phony general. That's the new terminology from the right-wing radio hosts. Rush Limbaugh got in trouble a while ago for saying the phony soldiers. See, anyone that doesn't buy into their right-wing, kill them all, let God sort them out, might makes right sort of worldview are phony. This is an insult to all the troops. This is an insult to that general. You want to talk about unit cohesion? The man was a general, for God's sake. I mean, he should know a little bit more about it than those of you on the right who dodged the draft and avoided serving your country. But even this isn't our winner today. Let's go again to the right-wing radio guys. This is Bill O'Reilly, falafel boy, Mr. Lufa. Bill O'Reilly talking about those of us who happen to read the left-wing blogs, like Daily Kos or America Blog or Pan's House Blend or any of these left-wing, talk left types of blogs. Here's what he thinks of those of us who read the left-wing blogs.
If you read the far-left websites, you're a devil worshiper.
Bill.
You are.
A devil worshiper. That's what I am. I'm a devil worshiper. I didn't know that. I read Cause every day, and who knew? I didn't know I was a devil worshiper. But even that is not our winner today. For our winner, we have to go to the $50 million man. That's right, Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck from CNN's Headline News, the most trusted name in Paris news. Yes, Glenn Beck was asked about this reaction to Mitt Romney's Mormon speech, where Mitt Romney's trying to allay the fears about his Mormonism. And it's important to remember, for the context of this, that Glenn Beck is also a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He's also a Mormon. He's also got the underwear and the whole thing. So Glenn Beck has this question to ask about the whole Mitt Romney thing.
Why are we going to a candidate and asking about religion? Who cares? If you really, America, you really want to know about Mormons, believe me, ask a Mormon.
You mean Glenn Beck agrees with me?
What?
That we shouldn't be asking questions, religious questions of candidates? I can't believe it. I must have something wrong in the transcript here, that we're not supposed to ask religious questions of the candidates? Until you look at the fine print that he's not saying, which is, we shouldn't be looking at the religion of the Mormon candidate. This is Glenn Beck talking about a potential Jewish candidate, Joe Lieberman. Maybe, if that would play, and it won't play. So let's try this one. How about a Muslim candidate? What do you think if it's a Muslim candidate? Like, I don't know. Suppose you had Representative Representative Ellison from Minnesota, the first Muslim elected to the House of Representatives. Would his religion be a problem?
Sir, prove to me that you are not working with our enemies. And I know you're not. I'm not accusing you of being an enemy, but that's the way I feel, and I think a lot of Americans will feel that way.
So if you're Keith Ellison, a representative who's a Muslim, we need to ask you whether or not your religion might make you an enemy, whether or not you might sympathize with the Muslim radicals that are trying to exterminate the American way of life. So, Glenn Beck, for demonstrating the sheer hypocrisy of Larry Craig and the flip-floppery of Mitt Romney, you're the winner of this week's Lunatic Fringe Award. Yeah, it's a never-ending parade with these guys, these lunatics. The stupid things they say. Yeah, apparently it's bad to question somebody's religion if it matches Glenn Beck's religion. But if it's a Muslim, yeah, we got to ask a few questions about that, apparently. All right, well, enough of the whole religious thing. We got the Lunatic Fringe Award here. I want to go to some of the other breaking news that we've had this week. Of course, there was the NIE report that came out that said that all of our intelligence agencies coming together who said that Iran is not trying to build nuclear weapons, hasn't been since 2003, and Bush is trying to backpedal out of that one. We've also got this report about the CIA destroying tapes of interrogations where they were using the drowning torture from the Spanish Inquisition.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Well, gee, sorry. But, they destroyed tapes, even though they told Congress they didn't have any tapes. And we're going to get to those as we come back from the break. Also, oh boy, this is some recent Sheldon Whitehouse, from the senator from Rhode Island, gave a speech on the floor where they were debating the reform of the FISA law and uncovered some secret memos from the Department of Justice, the Office of Legal Counsel, dictating that Well, dictating that President Bush is what he thinks he is. He thinks he's the dictator.
If this were a dictatorship, it'd be a heck of a lot easier. Just so long as I'm the dictator.
And he may be closer to that than any of us actually realized. Stay tuned. After the break, we'll play that audio for you. And your phone calls at 866-5577-377. I'm Radical Russ.
This is the Russ Belville Show.
Raindrops keep falling on my head.
Welcome back to the show. It's 21 after the hour, and you're listening to live weekend progressive talk for the average working class American from an average working class American. That's me, Radical Russ Belville. And yes, it's a bright sunny day out here in the Pacific Northwest. We've been suffering through a week of some pretty horrific rains. If you've been following the news, you saw some of the sights, and you know, it's something different when this flooding stuff hits close to home. You know, it's just amazing the devastation that's happened up here in the Pacific Northwest. And if anyone out there in the Western Washington, Western Oregon are listening to me on the satellite right now, I sure hope you're okay. And we'll all band together. We'll get through this. Now, when I went to the break, I had mentioned this recent revelation from Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who's the Democrat from Rhode Island. And he was on the floor of the House, or floor of the Senate, giving a speech about the debate over FISA reform. Now, FISA, of course, is the Foreign Intelligence Services Surveillance Act, which grants to the president, the executive branch, the ability to spy domestically and overseas on Americans, or on anyone for that matter, but just so long as he gets a retroactive warrant within 72 hours. We've been talking about FISA for weeks now, and about the warrantless wiretapping that the telecom industry cooperated with. So they're discussing FISA, and they're trying to debate, how we're going to fix the FISA law and how we're going to adjust it to deal with the age of the modern age, with computers and text messaging and all these new technologies that we couldn't have thought of back in 1978. So, Sheldon Whitehouse, the senator, got a hold of some secret opinions, these memos that were written by the Office of Legal Counsel, okay? Now, the Office of Legal Counsel, that's the part of the Department of Justice that acts as an advisor to the executive branch. It acts as advisor to the president to let the president know what is legal, what the laws are, what sort of things he can and can't do under the law. Now, the memos themselves are classified, and he's not allowed to, give the exact text of the memo, but he took notes. And he worked to get these notes declassified so that he could mention them during this debate. So he found 3 of these memos that are just going to put a chill down your spine when you think about that old quote that we had from George W. Bush.
If this were a dictatorship, it'd be a heck of a lot easier. Just so long as I'm the dictator.
So he's always harbored these desires of being a dictator, and the way he's acted throughout his presidency, it's very clear that he doesn't feel any need to obey the rule of law in any meaningful way. So Whitehouse gets on the floor of the Senate to expose these 3 memos. I'm going to play them for you one at a time, and we'll talk about them. You can think about this. This is the first one that the Office of Legal Counsel has told the president with regards to executive orders.
1, an executive order cannot limit a president. There is no constitutional requirement for a president to issue a new executive order whenever he wishes to depart from the terms of a previous executive order. Rather than violate an executive order, the president has instead modified or waived it.
Okay, now let that sink in for a second. Executive orders are those orders that are written by the president to govern the actions of the executive branch, and yet, according to this opinion from the Office of Legal Counsel, he doesn't have to follow that rule. An executive order cannot limit a president, it says. So, look, if you don't have to follow the rules, what's the point in having a rule anyway? That doesn't make any sense. And furthermore, it goes to say that, if he wishes to depart from the terms of an executive order, all he has to do is just do it, and that will be considered he either modified or waived the rule. So he doesn't even have to go out in public before the American people. He doesn't have to sign any sort of document. He doesn't have to repeal the executive order. He doesn't have to create a new executive order. He can just do what he wants, and that's considered waiving or modifying the executive order according to his needs. So he can break the rules anytime he wants without telling anyone. Here's the second memo that they uncovered regarding the president, and this is regarding his powers under the Constitution. Of course, the United States Constitution sets forth in Article 2 what the rules are, what are the laws, what are the powers of the presidency. Here's how the president can interpret his powers under Article 2.
Number 2, the president, exercising his constitutional authority under Article 2, can determine whether an action is a lawful exercise of the president's authority under Article 2.
Yeah. So the president gets to decide what his own powers are. That's what they're saying there. The president can determine whether an action is a lawful exercise under the president's authority under Article 2. Does this sound familiar to anyone?
Or when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal.
Exactly. We turned away one of these power-hungry right-wing dirtbags once before in Richard M. Nixon, and they're trying the same thing again. The president can decide whether what he does is legal or illegal. But that's not all. That's not all. This third one here, this is the third memo that White House uncovered about the Department of Justice. Okay, so the Department of Justice is part of the executive branch. It's charged with, the attorneys, the U.S. attorneys and prosecutions and upholding the law. Here's the opinion of the Office of Legal Counsel with regards to the relationship between the president and the Department of Justice.
And 3, the Department of Justice is bound by the president's legal determinations.
You got that? The president isn't bound by what the Department of Justice says. The Department of Justice is bound by what the president says. It's up to the president to tell our Department of Justice what the laws are and how they should be enforced. So let me just summarize this for you. This is what the White House came across and did his summary. Here's the summary of those 3 points. I don't have to follow my own rules, and I don't have to tell you when I'm breaking them. I get to determine what my own powers are, and the Department of Justice doesn't tell me what the law is. I tell the Department of Justice what the law is. Wow, it sure is good to be the king, isn't it? Yeah.
Or when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal.
We are in the throes of a constitutional coup here, ladies and gentlemen. This is nothing short of treason to our United States Constitution. The one thing that binds us all together is the fact that we are a country of laws. We are a nation of laws, not men. Our founding fathers overthrew a monarchy to build this beautiful country, and now Bush and his cronies want to return us to that same sort of monarchy, where the king makes all the rules, and the king tells the courts what they do, and the king decides what his powers are. We overthrew one King George. It's long past time that we overthrow this King George. Impeachment now. Call your representatives, call your Congress. Let's impeach this lying sack of... 29 after, I gotta go. We'll be right back after the break. I'm Russ Belville.
This is the Russ Belville Show. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
On the other hand, what I'm not going to miss is what we all, some of us went through in 2000, which was getting on an airplane and having my friend Candy Crowley pass a virus around and
here we thought that the right wing didn't have that kind of fun. Passing a virus around. Sounds democratic. Anyway, it's 35 after the hour. Welcome back to the weekend. I'm your red state refugee, Radical Russ, bringing you live progressive talk here on the weekends. And I want to turn to this tragedy that just occurred in Omaha with this shooter in Omaha. This young man, 19-year-old young man, depressed, lost his job at McDonald's. Girlfriend broke up with him. Parents kicked him out of the house, all depressed. Got himself an assault rifle and took to the mall to shoot and kill people. Killed 8 people, including him, and then also himself, and injured 5 others, I believe. And, you know, following this and following the massacre in April at Virginia Tech, where we had, 37 people that were killed by another young man, 23-year-old young man, Cho, who was depressed and suicidal. So are you worried about this? I mean, is it about time we do something about this? Because, you know, we have all these politicians trying to scare the bejesus out of us with the whole terrorism, you know, the Al-Qaeda. The old Al-Qaeda is going to sneak in with the Mexicans across the border and plant a dirty bomb or a suitcase nuke and blow us up and kill us. You know, I'm not afraid of Al-Qaeda. I'm not. I'm not afraid of Al-Qaeda. I'm more afraid of these depressed, suicidal young male loners. And it's always guys, too. It's always males that are doing this. You know, I'm more worried about that. And when you read this guy, his suicide note just came out. CNN had posted his suicide note. And, you know, it's typical, you know, suicidal young man type of stuff. You know, he says, everybody's going to remember me as some sort of monster. I've been a piece of, crap. I've been a piece of crap my entire life. This is my only option. I'm going to be famous. I want to take a few pieces of crap with me. You'll be better off without me. I've just snapped. I can't take this meaningless existence anymore, and so on and so on. And while we have to accept the fact that there's going to be, no matter what we do, somebody's going to go postal sometime. Somebody's going to snap and want to take a bunch of people out. But I think we ought to ask ourselves how much we are contributing to the problem through our policies, through our politics, through our economics. You know, how many people out there affected by the subprime lending fiasco are going to lose their homes? How many of those people are going to snap and want to take themselves out or take someone else out? How many people out there suffering, you know, with some sort of incurable disease or let's say some sort of disease that is curable, some sort of situation where if they had access to health care, if they had health insurance they could afford, that they might be able to treat it? How many of those people are just going to snap and give up and take themselves out and maybe take a few other people with us? You know, the economy has so much to do with our societal stability. And throughout this entire Bush maladministration, where we've seen more and more wealth accumulating to the top 0.1%, and for those of us at the bottom, those of us who are getting the benefit of these trickle-on economics, left with just crumbs to fight over. I mean, the guy lost his job at McDonald's, 19-year-old young man. You know, could he have been, you know, in a different world, could he have been a successful college student, perhaps, if he had some help, some grants or some money that he could have gotten to college? Could he have been more fulfilled if he had some better job than to be, you know, working part-time with a paper hat on? You know, these are the questions I ask myself whenever I see one of these school shootings or one of these mall shootings that go down. I try to put myself in their shoes and imagine, what is it? How did life get so bad that these people are forced to feel that the only option they have is to end it all and to take a few people with them? And you know, I don't have the answers to this because, you know, I'm not any sort of psychologist or anything. But the phone number here is 866-557-7377. That's 866-5577-377. If someone can explain that to me, why we're more afraid of terrorists than we are of disgruntled young men with assault rifles. And why is it that time after time this keeps on happening and we have no one on the left, no one in any sort of position of power calling for any sort of sensible regulation of these guns? You know, I hate to keep coming back to the gun control argument, but, you know, like I said at the top of the show, guns don't kill people. Depressed, suicide young male loners with guns kill people. Maybe we don't need gun control. Maybe what we need is better nut control, okay? Maybe we need some better mental health facilities. Remember when Reagan kicked everyone out of the mental health hospitals? Maybe if we had more mental health support. Maybe if we had more counselors in the schools. Maybe if our schools weren't overpopulated to the point of having 40, 45 kids to a teacher, maybe we could pick up on these guys. It's not like this just comes out of nowhere. It's not like a guy gets to be 19 years old and no one around him realizes there's something bad going on. Or does it? Or is that how it happens? Was this a shock to anyone around him, perhaps? I mean, did anyone pay attention to this young man? Did he give any cries for help? I mean, the details are sketchy still on this whole situation, but I can't help but think that the more we have these policies that continue to degrade the poor working class people, that continue to put roadblocks and obstacles in the way of getting college education and health care and meaningful employment, family wage living conditions, the more we get away from that, the more I predict we're going to see these people who just lose it, who just completely have no hope. They have no belief that they can get by in George W. Bush's neocon nightmare. So that's what I had to say about that. And besides, on the other hand, I got to also say that it's not like I'm anti-suicide necessarily. I believe everyone has the right to do with their life what they choose, and part of that is if they choose not to live anymore, they have the right to end their own life. But not take a bunch of people with you. That's definitely right out of the reports here. Some other things I wanted to get to here in the miscellaneous news that might have slipped under the radar, because we had that NIE story and the whole the CIA destroying their torture evidence, which has been talked to death throughout the week. But there's this one thing that slipped under the radar. I think a lot of people didn't catch this. Had to do with hate crimes. We talk about hate crimes in America, and they've been on the rise. The recent statistics that have come out have shown that we've got the highest level of hate crimes in America since they've started recording hate crimes. So it's just going up and up and up. We get all these cases like in Gina where they have the nooses being hung in the trees and the gay bashing attacks, the natural consequence of all the gay baiting that we had in the 2002 and 2004 and 2006 elections. It's not like this happens out of a vacuum, folks. It's designed to happen this way, to divide us, to conquer us. But anyway, the House and Senate had worked on this bill to include gays and lesbians and bisexuals in the hate crime statutes. Now, the hate crime statutes already protect you on the basis of race and creed, nationality, ethnicity, and religion. Yes, religion is also covered. And but yet they're going to have to drop this hate crimes provision because they tacked it to some defense bill. And now the Democrats are caving in, once again, on this bill because they don't think they can get it passed. And we're going to see more and more people that are going to suffer from these hate crimes because of it. Anyway, let's go to the phones. I've got Ed in Chicago on the phone. Ed at 866-5577-377. Ed, welcome to the Russ Belville Show.
Yeah, Russ, can you hear me all right? Because I got a little static from you. Now it seems fine. Okay.
Absolutely, you're good.
Okay, fine. I got a theory on these people who go out and commit these mass murders, okay? First of all, anybody's subject to do it. You've had blacks do it. You've had Orientals do it. But it is predominantly white. You had a black guy that shot 21 people on a Long Island Railroad many years ago. He's in jail now doing life. You've had at least 2 instances of Orientals. This last instance at Virginia Tech was a Korean fella. But in general, they are white males. And my feeling about why it's the white male doing it is because of all the groups in society, the white male probably has it easier than any other group. He's got less discrimination. He's got more opportunities. And when he feels the situation in society is totally hopeless, he has nowhere else to go but to go out in a blaze of glory. Think about it. Here is
that's an interesting point. Ed, let me make one slight correction, though. These days we say Asians, not Orientals. But that's a slight point, but it's, I have to make that clear here. But, yeah, you've got a point there about, this is something I've thought about too.
Yeah.
Is it, the Asian or the minority committing these mass shootings is somewhat the exception.
Correct.
We usually see it coming from young white males. And maybe that has something to do with, being raised as a white male, you kind of take for granted your position and privilege in society. And so when things don't go your way, you feel like, there's nothing you can do. And maybe that's a point there.
That's exactly what it is. When these guys feel the situation is worthless, that there's no hope in society, there's nowhere they can turn for help, they feel that they're the victims of the police and the courts, their government is full of corruption, they say, we've got it better than anybody, and we know that this society is hopeless. So imagine what the other groups are going through, but the difference with the other groups, the minority groups, is they are used to being the victims of hopelessness, whereas the white male, above all others, is the least used to it, and he, therefore, is the most likely to explode. I believe that.
Well, that's an interesting theory. Thank you for your call, Ed. I appreciate the point there. I think you made it very well. It's an interesting theory. I don't know for sure if I can go 100% with it, but it does bear some discussion. If you've got an opinion on that, give me a call at 866-5577-377. Is this the white man's burden, these school shootings and these mall shootings? It's an interesting question. Let's discuss it further. I'm Radical Russ. It's 47 after the hour. Welcome back to the weekend. I'm Radical Russ here, coming at you live on XM Satellite 167 or a terrestrial station near you. The phones are lighting up here at 866-5577-377. Let's go to Columbus, Ohio. We've got Chuck on the line. Chuck, welcome to the Russ Belville Show.
Oh, thank you, sir. Regarding the fat cat Christians, they need to think about the eye of the needle. Regarding the Department of Justice, even Edwin Meese wouldn't buy that excuse. And as far as the shootings that recently took place, I have to agree with you. It's a problem with our medical system, our national health care. If somebody gets in that position where they feel that they've got a problem, they feel they don't know what to do, who do they talk to? Nobody.
Yeah, where do you go?
And
even if you had a place to go, how would you afford it?
Exactly. All they can do is let loose. They can just go wild. And that's certainly not the answer. And that may be the reason it happens here and not in certain other Western countries.
Yeah, that could be. We certainly have the highest rates of gun violence, way, way higher than any other industrialized nation. Thanks for your opinion there, Chuck. I appreciate it. Got more calls here. Let's go to Steve in Chicago, Illinois. Steve, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, sir. How you doing?
Oh, getting over a cold here, but making it otherwise. What you got to say?
Well, I wanted to talk to you about the caller just a moment ago who said, it's kind of a white man's problem. I just don't like the way he was kind of apologizing for being a white person. I think that was an excuse that didn't necessarily fit. I think the guy just happened to be crazy, and I think it's more related to the national health care system, like your previous caller was just saying.
Okay, but what do you think about though the fact that when we see these cases happen, they almost always seem to be young white males? Well, is that just coincidence, or?
It could be. I mean, with Cho in Virginia Tech, he happened to be an Asian guy. That's not to say that all Asians are going to go off and do this. I think you have to take it on a case by case basis.
Okay, but is there anything contributing? Is there any sort of societal or cultural reason that might cause young white kids to go off more than young black or Asian kids? Is there?
Well, I mean,
or is this just a coincidence?
What about the young black kids in Maryland who just beat the snot out of this woman for sitting down?
Yeah, I saw that about the whole bus situation. Well, I don't know. I don't know exactly what the situation. I thought it was an interesting theory to think about. How if you grow up in America as a minority, you might be a little more used to the adversity. You might be more used to the hopelessness. Like I said, he kind of threw that at me, and I thought it was interesting. I'm not so sure I buy it yet.
It's interesting to think about, but at the same time, people who get like. I dealt with plenty of adversity in my life, like everyone else has. And you don't go killing people if you're in a proper mental state, regardless of how much adversity you go. I mean, you even if you're at the point where you want to kill yourself, that it's just you. I mean, something really has to have been clicked off before you go off, shooting people at random.
That's the other thing, too. In his suicide note, he mentioned something about wanting to take a few other pieces of crap with him. What is it that he had against these people? Did he pick them all on purpose? Is it something against consumerism or wealth or something?
The article that I read it was trying to put a spin on it that he was only killing people who were holding presents. So maybe he never got gifts.
Oh. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I'll have to look more into that. Thank you for your call, Steve. I really appreciate it. You and Chuck both have a good point there about the mental health system, or the lack thereof, here in this country. Let me move over to the East Coast here, to the city so great they had to name it twice, New York City. Got Alan on the phone. Alan, welcome to the show.
Hi there. How are you today?
Oh, we're making it.
Yes, I'd like to respectfully disagree with you.
Okay.
The mall shooting, I hear the rhetoric keep on blaming the Bush administration and everything being blamed on Bush, but what about the tons of school shooting under the Clinton administration? But yet he doesn't get any blame about this. I agree with the last caller. It's a case-by-case basis. Blaming this on the right and the Republicans is just beyond the pale, and that's my opinion on that.
Okay, let me clarify. Let me clarify this, Alan. I'm not necessarily blaming it on the right or the Bush administration. You make an absolutely valid point. This has been going on long before red state, blue state, left, right, Bush, Clinton, whatever. I always bring this up when someone says something about, it's the violent video games. Well, Hitler didn't have any violent video games. Genghis Khan didn't have any violent video games. So, yeah, we can't say that it's a Bush administration fault. What we can look at, though, is the policies under the Bush administration that have taken health care away from people and made health care less able to get. Like Steve and Chuck were mentioning, where does this guy turn if he's got a mental health issue?
Right, but isn't there there's commercials for Suicide Hotline? I don't know if maybe that might have been a help to him. I'm not sure, but I'm just saying blaming this on the healthcare system totally is just beyond the pale.
Well, I disagree with you on that, Alan. I think healthcare and a lack of mental health care in America has a whole lot to do this. But I appreciate the divergent opinion. Got no problem with that. That's what America's all about. Thank you for your call. I totally appreciate that. Maybe I should have led with this segment today. This is getting a lot of calls here, but unfortunately I'm running out of time, so I got to wrap things up for today. So I want to thank everyone who called in from all over the country. Check out my website at radicalruss.net. Within about a half an hour, I'll have all of the locations all around this great continent of ours where people have called in. You can see all the people who are joining us, radical progressives, every weekend here on the Russ Belville Show, trying to take our country back, our Constitution back, one boy, one girl, one person at a time. Also want to give thanks out there to my lovely wife and to all the folks that have been supporting me throughout this journey. And a shout out also to the people of Western Washington and Western Oregon who are suffering through these recent floods that we had. I hope you're dry. I hope that no one that you love or care about, or for that matter anybody that you knew, suffered too greatly throughout these storms. Wish I could get some of this water down to the south. It sounds like they need it. We'll be back here this same time and this same channel every weekend here. So join the fastest growing progressive talk show on the airwaves today. I'm Radical Russ Belville, your red state refugee. Take care of each other, America, and remember, this country is great because of its people and because of the rule of law. Take it easy and go Pack Go.